What's up everybody, Kinetic here, and welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Online. It has been quite some time since I last put my hands on ESO, and in that time, there have been a number of patches and improvements, general polish to ESO, and in kind of part as my first plan here for 2015, I'm revisiting ESO and a bunch of other MMORPGs to see how they're coming along. For example, you've probably already seen me cover some Terra recently, now it's ESO. I'm also going to be revisiting some other games and, of course, covering some new games, for example, Black Desert Online. And with ESO, I was I was being cautiously optimistic, more for this game than any other, because it's the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm very familiar with it. I've played, I think, I almost want to say every game, but no, I haven't played Arena. I've played since Morrowind. I've played Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and I'm quite into the lore. I really like the story in general for the Elder Scrolls Online, so it's quite a pleasure to always see a new Elder Scrolls game come out. Now, of course, with it becoming an MMORPG, this changes so many aspects in ways in which you would normally experience the Elder Scrolls, because now it's online with multiplayer and stuff like that. I remember in beta, there were so many reasons why it didn't feel like Elder Scrolls. There's tons of people running around, all doing the same quests that you're doing. There's nothing in containers when you check them because everybody's already emptied them out and stuff like that. There were a number of issues back then. So now that I'm checking in with it again, things definitely have changed. And with the patches and improvements that they've made, it does, for me personally, really now start to feel much more like an Elder Scrolls Online experience. I made a new character. I made a Nord Templar, which I think is a pretty cool combination, and she is only level 7. I'm running around here in the Ebonheart Pact opening starting area, and like I said, there's a few people, but for the most part, I actually feel kind of alone. And I thought to myself, that's actually really interesting, because normally in MMORPGs, when I feel alone, I feel like uncomfortable. I feel like, why am I alone? Where is everybody? Is there something wrong with the game or something like that? It's actually having the opposite effect for me. Now, like I said, I'm giving ESO the benefit of the doubt, and the reason why I'm not seeing very many people in the game is because they're high level now, but it's actually more enjoyable for me right now, personally. And this is so weird, but it's more fun for me to actually feel almost alone, because that's what I normally feel like in the Elder Scrolls series. When I'm running around in Skyrim, for example, I'm pretty much the only adventurer, because everybody else, I almost made an arrow to the knee joke, but you guys would have sighed and probably disliked my video. But no, I mean, like, I'm almost the sole person running around, and it feels nice for some strange reason. Now, I do, like I said, see people once in a while, and it's cool. Particularly when I'm going into, for example, kind of like a dungeon style area or something like that, then maybe I'll see somebody just, organically run up to me and sort of pair up with me like that into a group, and then we do something, and then we go on our separate ways as we have different agendas and stuff like that. I imagine for people that are watching videos like these of the Elder Scrolls Online here on YouTube, they're probably one of two different viewers. They're either A, interested in playing the Elder Scrolls Online and are looking for, is this the kind of game for me? What does this person have to say? Is it good? And stuff like that. Or B, they are already playing the game and just kind of want to get an understanding of what other people's views are like while they're playing the game as well. Well, I don't have much to say for that B group, but for the A group, why you should play the Elder Scrolls Online? Well, for one, it's an Elder Scrolls Online game. I think that in itself is a good reason to play the game. The Elder Scrolls series, I mean, is one of the most interesting and well thought out worlds in all of video games, I think. Has a tremendous history behind it, very interesting characters, and generally speaking, the quality is usually very, very high, with developers that genuinely care about keeping the game's reputation high and their player base happy. And that's, you may think, well, isn't that what developers are supposed to do? Well, yeah, they are, but not that many of them actually do that. I could probably name, but I won't, many different developers whose games have really suffered because they're not getting it anymore. They don't seem to care anymore about the game series or about their fans anymore and stuff like that. But I can tell that Elder Scrolls is not one of those series. They are beloved by millions, and those millions include the people that are making the game as well. I don't think for one second that these developers are just cashing in on the Elder Scrolls name to make an MMO and cash in on the success of MMOs. No, that's nonsense. People wanted MMO style version of the Elder Scrolls Online, so you know what? ZeniMax stepped up to the plate and made one, and that's a really tough thing to do. That's actually almost an impossible thing to do, to take what is a dominantly single-player experience and then somehow translate that into an enjoyable online multiplayer experience. But I think that they've done that almost the best that they can. I won't say that they've done a fantastically perfect job. Far from it, actually. There's a lot of things that still need improving in the Elder Scrolls Online, but it's still in its infancy. If you think about it, it's only been a year now, right, or something like that, close to a year or whatever about, for the Elder Scrolls Online. But it's already made great leaps in improving the gameplay experience and just the stability of the game as a whole. You may remember that ESO launched with quite a number of bugs, and that's to be expected with a lot of games like these. I think ESO may have had it a little bit worse than others, so naturally those are the types of things that need to be tackled first. So if you're wondering if there's still a bunch of bugs that are game breaking or whatever, or just detrimental to the experience, from what I've experienced, I've had absolutely no problems whatsoever. No bugs or glitches I have seen at all in this game. I think another thing that speaks really well for the game, even though it is quite late now since it was supposed to be released, the next-gen console versions, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One of the Elder Scrolls Online, now finally have a release date. And on top of that, we also have fantastic news. I think that the Elder Scrolls Online is now going buy to play. Some people I've noticed around on the internet, and even a couple of people in my own circle, got the message mixed up and thought that ESO was going free to play. No, it's just going buy to play, which it means that, well, it's like a normal Elder Scrolls game now. You simply buy the game and you play it as much as you want without having to pay for a subscription fee. That may have been what they should have done from the very beginning. I understand, and I actually supported them in having a subscription fee, because to me that meant a great potential for their funding and their ability to keep a lot of staff on board, customer support and things like that, all are paid for by subscription fees. If you doubt the usefulness of a subscription fee in an online game, then do me a favor and try to play some of those cheap online MMORPGs. Try to enjoy the game, try to contact customer support, and try not to be disappointed by the lack of fixing of bugs and glitches in the game. Try not to be disappointed by the infrequency of new content added to the game. It's almost going to be guaranteed that you will be disappointed by that. I mean, it really shouldn't be any surprise, right? The amount of money that a company has to make a good product will then mean whether they make an actually high quality product or just something cheap and hardly pay any attention to once it's been released. And a lot of people will argue that still, even though I think that it makes complete logical sense that the more money a company has, the better a product they can make. But there's a lot of anti-subscriber type of people out there that will just completely bash on a game if it has a subscription requirement in order to play it. Even though we have World of Warcraft, which still has millions and millions of people paying for it, and look at the quality that Blizzard is able to put out, the frequency that they're able to come out with expansion packs, bug fixes, all kinds of stuff, isn't just out of thin air. It's because they have that money coming to them, and that's what a lot of people wanted to see for the Elder Scrolls Online, that level of AAA development from ZeniMax. So then you might say, well, if that's true, if it's so important that an MMORPG has a subscription fee behind it, then why is ZeniMax now making The Elder Scrolls Online buy to play? That's a very good question, and I think a lot of people will jump and say, well, it's because they lost so many subscribers, they're forced to make it buy to play just to save the game from preventing it from going down the toilet or something like that. And I really think that that's just negative thinking of the highest form. There is probably a much deeper story behind it that only the people at ZeniMax and Bethesda and people working on the game, the management, the marketing, and all that stuff truly know what the actual story is behind making The Elder Scrolls Online buy to play. Me personally, I think ZeniMax had the best of intentions for The Elder Scrolls Online. I think, like I said, they were hoping to be in that position where they could, like World of Warcraft and Blizzard, they could have a very high quality game and the support of players so that way they could do really, really big things for the game. Why did it go buy to play? I think it has maybe partly something to do with the fact that The Elder Scrolls Online is going on to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. World of Warcraft isn't. It doesn't have to worry about things like complications with Xbox Live payments, or now PlayStation also has its own online fee in order to be part of its multiplayer service, right? Doesn't it seem like more than simply a coincidence that at the same time that they are announcing that they're finally ready to release The Elder Scrolls Online for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, at the same time they're also saying that there's not going to be a subscription requirement? I think that that has something to do with it. Maybe, and this is just my wild theories out there, but maybe ZeniMax and PlayStation and Xbox could not find a way to make it work for a subscription service fairly. Maybe there's some complication there with the way that the fees were going to be handled between ZeniMax and PlayStation and ZeniMax and Microsoft and stuff like that, that finally, after all these delays for coming out with The Elder Scrolls Online on console, ZeniMax probably said, you know what, we're tired of waiting. The fans are tired of waiting. Let's just bite the bullet here and make it fair for everybody and make it buy to play for PC and console. That's my personal belief. Now, again, I don't think that's the only reason. I think that, yes, probably they saw also great potential and an increase in player base by making it buy to play. Certainly there are many success stories. I have heard from developers of MMORPGs personally in one-on-one conversations on how they say, and this is no secret, they've been saying it for some years now, once they made their game free to play or something like that instead of subscription, they had so much more support from players and were doing as good, if not better, than how they were from a subscription requiring standpoint. So then again, we kind of go back to that. What's the meaning of having a subscription service then? Or why would they even bother then if the history now is showing that a lot of developers are having more success without a subscription fee? Why even bother then? Why not just go with that right from the start? Again, I think that they had high hopes for being a AAA game that could make good use of subscription fees and contend with the likes of World of Warcraft and stuff like that, but it just became more hassle than it's worth. Plus, it's also an extremely dangerous financial gamble, I think. To make an MMORPG only buy to play or even free to play, there's so much uncertainty there. Are you really going to have the support of the player base to still cover the fees and the cost, the ongoing costs of development, customer support, and all these different things, simply the electricity to run the servers to keep these games up and running has to come from somewhere. You know, that's got to be a scary thing to gamble on, to just release your game and hope that it sells good enough or that people are going to buy enough shirts and hats from a cash shop to cover the cost of stuff like that. So I think naturally, when it comes to developing an MMORPG, the safest thing that they would like to be able to achieve is to have a subscription base, so that way it gives them peace of mind that they do have the financial support to not only pay for the development costs up to that point of release, but also to continue to have good support from the release and beyond from its player base. This video has actually turned much more into a conversation from me about subscription fees and all of that stuff, and whether you agree with me or not, it's totally fine either way. I think that everybody's, of course, entitled to their opinion, their beliefs and stuff like that. If they think that ZeniMax is just a company full of greedy bastards, well, I guess that's the way you're gonna think, and you've probably made up your mind. I'm not gonna argue with you. But I hope that maybe from listening to me and my perspective, maybe some of you might see it in a little bit more of a less cynical nature, how and why these things take place in the development of online RPGs. Now, what would be ideal, I think, and this comes from me as a fan of the genre of MMORPGs, what I would like to see is that buy-to-play becomes the norm, instead of subscription attempts only to become free-to-play later on, or buy-to-play or something like that. Instead of all of that mess, and more importantly than that, I would like to see developers simply be comfortable with that payment model or something similar to it. Maybe the standard, instead of trying to start off with a mandatory subscription fee, instead of that, maybe we should start with buy to play as the model and an optional subscription service if you want. To me, I think that's the perfect hybrid, and I want developers to feel comfortable, because there's enough support from MMORPG fans that they will get the best of both worlds. They'll get the players that don't want to pay for a subscription fee but want to buy their game and play it, and also attract the players that want to buy the game and are comfortable with supporting the developers through a subscription service, and of course have additional benefits because they are part of a program such as that. That's what I would like to see for the future of MMORPG games, is a system that isn't so chaotic, a system that doesn't start one way and then has to really change gears hard to become something very different from a monetization point later on than how it started. I think that everybody will just have a much better experience as a whole for it. I think that's going to do it for this video. I need to probably stop before I ramble on any further about this subject. And you know what? It would be really cool to hear your guys' opinion about the things that I discussed here. And I would really like to get this out of the way now as a discussion point, so that way as I make videos in the future for the Elder Scrolls Online, I want those to be about talking about the game, not talking about its monetization plan. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. What are your thoughts? Are you pro-subscription? Are you anti-subscription? Do you like hybrids? Do you just think that games should be free and you should get a free level 60 or max cap character as soon as you buy the game? What's your level of entitlement? Like, what do you think you should get? And maybe also, here's another thing, what do you think you should get, or what would you like to see from something like that, like the hybrid version that I said. You have a buy to play and there's no requirement for a subscription, but there is an optional subscription. What kind of benefits would you personally like to see come out of a system like that? Let me know in the comments section. Click the like button to support these Elder Scrolls Online videos and stay subscribed. More is definitely on the way. Thanks again for watching. My name is Kinetic, and I'll see you next time.